This week on the TT Show, we check out some of the big announcements coming out of Gamescom for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. NVIDIA partners with MediaTek in a game-changing announcement for displays. ARM is looking to enter the gaming GPU arena. Microsoft's controversial AI feature is back, and much, much more. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT Show. My name is Jak Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriotis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown. Gamescom.
Gamescom is here. As we were saying last week, this week's episode is going to be inundated with gaming news. We have new gaming tech, new game announcements. As we were saying last week, I think Jeff Keighley said that this year's Gamescom was going to have announcements of new games instead of it being a strictly announcements of updates of current games. Yeah. So there was a lot of that too. Bunch of new stuff coming out that is going to tickle the pickle of a lot of gamers out there. What do you want to start with?
Well, I'll start with the biggest game at the moment, like Black Myth Wukong, because last week we talked about they released that benchmark tool and we went through performance, and now that the game is out, reviews are online. It's like one of the most talked about games currently at the moment. Seems that everybody's playing it. As we've reported in a number of other sites, Black Myth Wukong is now the most played single player game ever on Steam in terms of concurrent players. It basically has outdone like Cyberpunk 2077, like Elden Ring, like what recent massive single player games.
It's huge, man.
So the peak concurrent player count was only achieved 14 hours ago. So the game's only been out for a couple of days and it seems to be breaking the record. So it hit 2.3 million concurrent players. There's currently 1 million people playing the game right now. This is Game Science, an independent studio out of China. Now, Steam is available in China. So these numbers include the Chinese market where the Monkey King fable and myth and stuff like that is one of the biggest in terms of it's like the King Arthur legend or whatever else, and in different cultures that's it's massive.
Yeah, it's one of my Wukong is one of my favorite characters. I got exposed to the Wukong storyline. I think it's Jackie Chan has done movies. Is it the Kingdom movie with Jackie Chan?
I don't know. I remember there was an old TV show called Monkey Magic. I think it's on Netflix.
Monkey Magic.
Yeah. I think it's 70s or 80s. I think it's a Japanese TV show.
The Forbidden Kingdom. The Forbidden Kingdom with Jackie Chan and Jet Li.
Right.
Was loosely based on the 16th century novel Journey to the West.
Yeah, Journey to the West. That's it.
Yeah, which is the story of Wukong.
Yep.
Which is crazy. I loved that movie, and I also played a lot of Wukong in League of Legends because he was in there. I think he's such a cool character. I love that the pole extends. I think that's awesome.
I think you might dig this. I've been playing it. I had code for a little while, but I'm only not hugely far into it. Let's say 4, 5, 6 hours or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It looks stunning. The benchmark tool, as we covered last week, how it shows a fly through of the forest. That's one of the first locations in the game. The game has a really impressive real-time cinematic introduction. It starts full on in the clouds with giant gods and the full Monkey King. These, wisecracking thingos challenging the gods, and there's this huge battle, and then at the same time there's a few bits where you take over and get to do learn how to dodge and just do light and heavy attacks or whatever the case is. And then it follows that standard video game thing where it's the Monkey King gets thrown down into the earth, and then hundreds of years later you're basically a descendant, or and you got to start from scratch and learn the abilities as you go. And But the way
okay, so they break down the hero at the start, and then you pick him up at the bottom, and then
it's kind of like, like Metroid Prime, how that like Metroid games, like Super Metroid on this, going back to Super Nintendo, like you start off full powered, and then you get your suit gets destroyed, and then you have to find all your abilities again, basically. Like it's a video game.
I like that premise. I like that premise. It's a good way to start it, because it almost gives you a taste of like what could be at the end of the game, because you're if you start super powerful with all of these sick moves and all of that stuff, and then you're just depowered immediately. You're like, wait, well, I've only got a sword now. But then you know that like, well, I had a rocket launcher before, so we can definitely do that at the game during the at some stage during the game.
And the way the game is like itself is structured is like they're kind of linear-ish levels. Like there's like, some branching paths and things like that. But I would describe it kind of like a bit like God of War's presentation on PlayStation, with a bit of backtracking and things like that, but mixed with Dark Souls or Star Wars Jedi games, where you've got like a single point where you save, and if you rest, which fills up your little healing bottle, whatever they're called, the lower level enemies will respawn in the area, and then it's basically a boss rush style game where every area you go to, there's like a mini boss, and there'll be like big bosses, and there's just a steady stream of like challenging sort of like fights is the kind of like the way it's structured. Like it's not Elden Ring, it's not like a full open world, it's not necessarily Dark Souls, because it's not that punishing overall either. Like it's a little bit
is there a difficulty
there's no difficulty mode. It's weird. Like it does get challenging. There's no difficulty mode, but like if you die, you're not really punished. Like if you
don't lose souls or anything like that, like you do in Elden Ring or Dark Souls.
That's right. You can just always like, you don't lose that stuff. Like you can just farm areas endlessly if you want to just level up. So and even if you die in a boss and you've got all your XP or souls or whatever it is, you can still spend them. You don't lose them. You don't have to go retrieve them.
So it's slightly more forgiving. Well,
slightly more forgiving.
A lot more forgiving.
And it's not like parry based or really slow methodical combat like Dark Souls or Elden Ring. Well, Elden Ring's not necessarily slow, but you know what I mean. Like you can parry and you can see. This one is like
it's definitely precise though.
Yes, but it's very fast paced. So it's more about dodging and positioning, and then using the right abilities, because you can get pretty OP abilities or overpowered sort of stuff early on. Like in Black Myth, one of the cool things in Black Myth is transformations. Like some bosses at a certain point, you basically steal their essence, and they're kind of like a super bar that charges up, and then you can transform into my favorite ones is like this wolf that has like this staff that's like fiery staff, and then you have like a massively increased health bar, and you have like this staff that's on fire that you can do like these super long dashes and really fast paced sort of like just destroy bosses.
So you capture the spirit of the boss that you're fighting?
Yeah, and then you can level those up. And then they're called transformations, and then you can equip them, and then you can like transform into different things. And there's other transformations that are just like temporary, like you can transform into like a toad and then like throw like certain things, or like some like snake. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Like it's very.
Do all of the upgrades revolve besides these?
You got these
augmentations, but do all of them revolve around upgrading the staff?
Yeah. It's basically, I guess that sort of side of it is very similar to how you would expect in like a God of War, where it's like,
the Leviathan axe is what you're upgrading the entire time. It's not like Kratos himself.
I actually found a different axe, and crafted different armor. But then you can upgrade them. I don't know. Like I haven't played like a huge amount to know like how much. But there is like different armor. There's different weapons that you can find, different helms and things like that. And you can, and just traditional skill points to spend, like, on health or extra health, extra stamina.
Yeah, because what I was wondering was, is this game going in the direction of the Leviathan axe, where like you don't pick up another weapon throughout your playthrough. It's like you use the same weapon the entire time, but you're just constantly upgrading it. Like that's your primary weapon. It's like, I think is Wukong going to be picking up like a rapier or something like that?
No, I think it's pretty much
always the staff, because
I
that's
think it's
his
always
thing.
the staff, and I think it's the transformations that kind of add different flavors.
Yeah.
Cool. But I think armors are different, just like in God of War. Like you can have your different armors that have different bonuses.
Yeah, I was hoping they went that
bonuses.
direction.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cool mix of like God of War with like really boss heavy, Dark Souls-y type of like, but fast pace, where it's just like mini bosses, and then these huge bosses, and sometimes like mini bosses feel as big as like a big boss.
And I love the China. I don't know about you. I know that you're a big fan of Greek mythology.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like the setting. Yeah, like I prefer this over like probably my least favorite would be like Viking or Norse.
Out of the, what would you say? Greek, Egyptian, Norse, and then Chinese, I suppose.
Yeah, and then there's probably Japanese.
Oh, we got the Indian pantheon like Gilgamesh.
Yeah,
is it that? Yeah, but that one's not. We haven't really seen many games go into the Indian
that's kind of
mythology,
underrepresented.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, unless Ubisoft decides to tackle it with Assassin's Creed, you know.
That could be interesting, wouldn't it? That would be an interesting setting. I love the aesthetic design of the Indian buildings. I think they're gorgeous. Like some of their architecture and the settings for like the the incense and the smoke and the dancing. I reckon that would be awesome.
That would be actually really cool for that sort of setting.
Yeah, and all their music as well. Oh yeah. No, I'm excited. I'm actually downloading Black Myth right now because I want to jump in. And I might actually capture the whole intro thing for the podcast, so we can kind of play it while you're like just over our conversation. So
the intro is like super epic. Yeah, it's pretty epic. The visually, it's stunning. It's a stunning game. It looks great.
Yeah, I'll do a bit of a screen capture for those on the YouTube, and if you're not on the YouTube, that's where you're gonna find it. So, do you think this is going to be a game that is a rise and fall in popularity, like you kind of like your Power Worlds? You know, Power World hit 2.1.
Yeah, but this is like...
Then just, it's got like 24-hour peak right here. I'm on the Steam charts. 30,000.
Yes. Yeah, of course. But like single-player games are a little bit different, right? Single-player games will have I think this game is like... like a single-player game will peak in the first few 90 days, right? Like that's a guarantee, because that's how it works. Like... but I think this will have a long tail, because I think discounts, people will jump in. I think this will be kind of like a Cyberpunk where it'll just always have like a bunch of people playing it. Like this seems to be like a mainstay, and it's going to be, people are going to be coming back to it too, because it's so visually advanced that people that are playing it now, if they upgrade their hardware in like 2 years' time or whatever the case is, they'll probably go back to it and max it out if they're not playing it maxed out now.
It does look phenomenal, doesn't it?
Yeah. And having like 2 million concurrent peak players means it's a success. It does, like, so even if it does drop off, and it means that it sold millions of copies.
How much is it USD? Let's just do an arithmetic on it. What is it? 90?
No, that's Australian.
It might be 99 US.
No. Games US prices is about like $60 or $50 US.
70.
70.
I reckon. Didn't GTA set the standard for $70 games? Like you get the most value out of spending $70 on a game with, I think it was GTA 4.
Yeah, but that's
console, I suppose.
But Steam, you expect to pay less for games, right? Like,
true. Yeah.
Like a console game that's like $60 US or whatever the case, or increasing to $70. You don't really see that as often in the console, in the PC space, because like Steam games, like with sales and stuff, like There's usually like most games kind of like usually launch at a lower price than the console version.
Well, if it was $60, they made $138 million.
Yeah, like it's a massive success. And the game's out on PlayStation 2, and so there's people buying it on PS5.
60 times
just like, just because of
2.3
the
million.
hype. Yeah.
That's what I did. 60 times 2.3 million, $138 million.
That's concurrent, right?
Yeah.
That means that's people playing it at the same time.
At the peak,
So
yeah.
So you're probably getting
That's not even consoles.
No, well, yeah, that's right. And the concurrent ratio means that like if there's 2 million people playing the game right now, there's probably at least 3 times as many bought the game.
True.
So like everybody that bought the game doesn't play it all at the same time.
True, yes. That is a very good point.
Like, you know, when you see like 50,000 concurrent players, could mean that the game has sold like 500,000 copies. Right? There could be like, or 1 million people. Like, not everybody's going to be playing at the same time, different time zones, things like that. So 2 million people at the same time probably means that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like if it sold 5 to 6 million. I think the developer came out and said that the game sold like millions, like in its opening day.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a success. Do you think we're going to get a DLC?
I think for sure they'll do
Something.
DLC. Yeah. And I think for sure like this studio is going to so it's $60 US on Steam. Yeah, so like I think this studio will definitely like come out with either DLC for this, or we'll move on to like some other project that'll be another cinematic game, because this is a AAA release out of China, which we don't really see go global.
No, I
because most
completely
developers
agree with that. What is the deluxe edition? Is that stated DLC?
That's just got cosmetics, I'm pretty sure. I got that.
Right, okay.
The deluxe edition actually gives you like a, early on, like, a little bit of a boost, because that equipment, I think you choose one of them at the start, like when you first get to your first shrine, and it gives you like a bonus to your defense that you wouldn't get otherwise.
A bit of pay to win. That's a bit yucky.
Yeah. But it doesn't really affect
it's not that big of a deal, like,
it's not a big of a deal, because I replaced it within like an hour as well. So it's
that was the next thing that I was about to say, was like, if it is immediately replaced, like, there is no other option but besides making this pay to win item, they need to make the pay to win item obsolete immediately. Then I'm okay with it. Because it's like, well, you're a dummy for buying the thing.
Yeah, like something like that. I mean, like a digital deluxe edition, like the equipment and all that sort of like cosmetic stuffs is like useless. I would rather have like an art
you can
book,
download the soundtrack.
This and that. Yeah, like, you would, like, those sort of things are like have a more value. But I think when it comes to like those sort of editions, they were better when they were like physical collector's editions.
100%.
You get like the art book. You get like.
Yes,
like
put it on my shelf,
you know? It's way
That's
more value than just getting like a cosmetic. I don't want like a different mask or a different outfit. Who gives a shit?
No.
Who cares?
No, I'm min-maxing the entire build in these games. I don't care. You should see what my Elden Ring character looks like. It looks insane, but the stats on it are nice as hell.
Yep.
So I don't care. It was like, I've got a folk opera mask, folk opera arm sling armor, folk opera leather braces, and folk opera buskin. Whatever they are, I would replace them immediately for something that looks insane but gives me mad stats.
yeah, it's kind of useless. I haven't played enough of it to know, but like so far, the story is a little bit just not as like the intro is purely cinematic, but like as like you're playing the game, it's kind of like really just focused purely on like the boss battles and that sort of stuff, from what I can tell. But like it's a fun game. I'm enjoying it. This is not my style of game, so like I bounce off Elden Ring, Dark Souls. Like I don't like, it's not that like I'm just not super interested in challenging games unless they're like a very specific style, like a Hades or a roguelike or more of a like RPG where you can sort of like hit a like I guess like Twitch based gameplay, right? Like, if you know what I mean, like where it's purely like reaction time and skill, like physical, like coordination. So like I can get good at those games, but I'm just like that's not what interests me. I'm
Do you
more
feel like you're
interested in
moving
story.
too slow?
No.
Because in the games that you mentioned, like Hades and stuff, you're dashing around that map,
Yeah, yeah.
like ding, 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 but you just get used to that combat loop, and I'm guessing you find it
Second
either
nature.
more satisfying or
Yeah, it's more satisfying.
it's more satisfying, and but you also feel more powerful because you're moving
Yeah.
around a
I
lot
was
quicker.
I was never a fan of like melee combat games, like just in general. Like I'm just not a fan of like XXY combos and like that sort of things. Like
Yeah,
where it's
okay.
like combo based melee games. This is not exactly that, but I'm just saying like those sort of games where you unlock movesets and it's just all about parry,
Yeah.
dodge, and like doing these like this like combat dance of back and forth. Like it was just like not my style of game. Like I just
Fair.
don't- yeah. But like with Hades, whatever, like it's just that the speed of it doesn't make a difference to me. It's like because I'm so into that sort of stat heavy. Like oh, that's going to give me this. Like then you can.
You're a loot
I
goblin.
can deal with it. Yeah, that's right.
You're a loot goblin. You're the guy that vacuums up all the loot in a raid. As soon as it hits the ground, you just like, and then everyone
Exactly.
in the clan, everyone in the raid party's like, "Where did all the gear go?" And then you just see that guy just running off. Like, hey, can we share the loot? He's like, no, I got this. This is these are all new best in slot items right here. No, look, these types of Dark Souls was so successful that it formed its own like genre of gaming.
the Souls like
Yeah, the Souls-like games is a certain flavor, that's for sure. Especially if you're going to, dive into some of the earlier titles. Like, I don't want to inflame.
I actually
the
don't
Dark
mind
Souls-
this flavor or this version of it because it is more about like I dodge. Like I prefer to like when I'm playing these sort of games, like I dodge away and then dodge back in, whack whack whack. Then like I'd rather like dance around the characters. I don't want to sit there and go parry, block.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of parrying, but there is a rule of thumb with Dark Souls mobs. I think if it's a human, you roll in, and then if it's like a massive big thing, if it's big, you roll in. So you actually got to roll under a lot of mobs in Dark Souls.
Yeah, within
But
like reach.
your instinct is to get away from them as far away from them as possible. But you want to be like under their feet and manipulating the camera, which is, it can get disorientating, and it's definitely like enraging. It is certainly a flavor of gaming. It's definitely not my favorite either. Like that's for sure. I enjoy more of I would take a good story over a difficult boss any day of the
Same.
week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would I would whack the game on easy if I'm really enjoying the story above the gameplay.
100%.
Because
I think the
what am I
best.
playing for?
I reckon probably the best mix of a game for me personally, like it was made for me, would be The Witcher 3. Because it was swords and sandals, it was magic, it was fantasy, it was a massive open RPG world that still looks fantastic to this day, and a banger story.
Yeah.
And an absolute
incredible
banger story. It's like that game was like made for me, I reckon, because like I love swords and sandals over sci-fi.
I love sci-fi. Like to me, even though as clunky as they are, like Fallout's probably that for me. Like I love the isolation. Weirdly enough, like if I go into like an abandoned like office building in Fallout, and it's just there's like ghouls and shit in there, and just like things are destroyed and just file cabinets are all rusted over. That's my happy place.
It's your happy place. Well, speaking of stuff that is typically destroyed when you go into like a room in the game, Borderlands 4.
Oh, well, it was announced, yeah. Like it was like a teaser trailer. So this was one of the big announcements at Gamescom. All right, so this is now officially the Gamescom section of game announcements.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, like the timing of this is kind of like if the movie
needed
was
to do
good,
this.
you would say it's perfect, but it's also perfect because the movie is apparently so bad that it's like, okay, yeah, back in your wheelhouse. You know what I mean? But also as well, like I think this is one of those cases where like the movie doesn't really matter. Like people don't play Borderlands really for the story. Borderlands 3's story was pathetic from my perspective. I mean, I enjoyed 2 kind of because it's amusing, but like 3 was just like so trying to be funny, and so you just ignore it, and then you just run around and collect the guns and play the fun combat.
Right. I never finished it. I started it but didn't finish it. But I think the timing of this is perfect because I mean, you're writing the marketing from a movie that is terrible, but regardless, you're writing the marketing. Like you're on that wave, and you're almost like this trailer is like the white knight that's coming to like save the thing, because Borderlands fans are, you know, rolling around on the floor without their skin because of how bad that movie was. I haven't seen it. That is just checking the reviews on it. It is one of the biggest blockbuster flops of all time, and it was apparently I looked into it. It was in production hell for a while. Like a long time.
Sort of like these train wrecks, like you get obsessed with them, kind of, you're like, oof, like what happened here, and then you read more and more, you're like, okay, reshoots.
Did you see who was going to write it?
Initially,
yeah.
Who?
I'm pretty sure it was the guy that wrote oh my god!
I know it was like directed by Eli Roth. Who makes
Eli Roth, and he did what TV show did he do?
I don't know if he did TV. He did like the Hostel movies, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. They wanted Eli Roth to come in after who signed, because there was a big writer for a really successful TV show that I loved, and I'm blanking on it right now.
That's right. Yeah, he came in,
signed his name off of the project because of how bad it was.
Yeah, that's
he's
right.
Like, get my name off this project.
Yeah, apparently, and there was like reshoots for over a year.
Yeah, that's terrible.
On and off.
That's production hell.
Yeah. And apparently, like, not only reshoots, but then like ADR, which is additional dialogue recording, stands for. So like, so what happens is that like even like great movies do this, right? Where they have to get actors in to re-record the voice because it may not be clear, or they may need to do a different version of the reading. And instead of reshooting the whole scene, you just record the voice, right? And they just go into a studio. And one way to cover it up, especially if they do like a 2-shot, like if they film you and then they film me talking, right? So then you see the back of my head, and then they see you, and then they can use my voice like a different recording for a different version of the line. And then if your reaction is going to be the same, whatever the case is, you can just slot things in. And apparently with the Borderlands film, there's a lot of shots where it's like backs of characters' heads talking, and people saying like, oh, you can just tell like this was just a product, like the story was just like, it was a mess because they had to like cobble it together and just like slot in like dialogue just to try and stitch it together.
That's poor, dude. That's poor. Did you ever see the TV show Chernobyl?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, Craig...
That's one of the... Yeah, Craig Mazin. He's one of the...
Craig Mazin was the Last of Us writer as well. And he wrote on Chernobyl. He asked to get his name removed from the Borderlands movie.
Craig Mazin's an interesting character, right? Because Chernobyl is one of the most tense...
so good. Highly
TV
recommended
shows.
For any listeners.
It's one of the best, like, it just seems like it just makes you uneasy.
Like
you
your skin crawl. It's sick.
Yeah, you feel sick when you're watching it, but like you're so into it because like it captures a tone and a feel. But that's like, it's a collaborative process, but he was like the showrunner and the lead writer. But anyway, like he's one of my favorites as well. I didn't like Last of Us anywhere near as much as I loved Chernobyl, but it was pretty good for what it was. Yeah. But Craig Mazin, like you never can tell with like certain people. Like, so he wrote and directed or co-wrote and directed like one of the last really bad spoof films, like the superhero movie, like those scary movie type movies.
Yeah, the black comedy.
Like, and I put it on the other day, like, I was like with my brother, and he's like, oh, like Last of Us. They put it, and I'm like, oh, the guy who did Chernobyl and stuff. He's like, oh yeah. Like, oh, he wrote this, like, superhero movie, and I put it on. It's like one of those cheesy bad things. So, like, you never can tell. Like, people, like, talented people can be involved in like trash products anyway, regardless.
Yeah,
but
true.
like you know, he walked away from it like knowing that it was. I think it was just too many cooks, right? And
I think it was overbaked.
Yeah.
Way overbaked, and they probably missed the mark entirely throughout the cooking process. For the trailer of this, though, like I haven't seen, for some reason, YouTube's updated, and my
it's a teaser trailer.
My plugin that puts the dislikes back on YouTube is now not there.
Yeah.
So I can't see whether this is received well or not, but I'm guessing 2.9K likes, 61,000 views. I was actually thinking this would get more. Borderlands 4.
Oh, it's probably the trailers
What?
on like every single.
Oh,
like,
true.
YouTube
It's like
channel. It's one of those.
IGN and stuff like that.
Yeah. So Borderlands 4 is like so it's a teaser trailer, but they've confirmed that it's out next year.
Cool.
So 2K Games bought Gearbox, the developer of Borderlands, but they were the publisher of Borderlands beforehand, so they've just bought up the developer. And Gearbox is a pretty sizable studio. Borderlands 2 is one of the top selling games of all time, actually. Surprisingly, like it's sold way more copies than you would expect. I think it's like 20, 30, 40 million or something like that, the second game. And Borderlands 3 was a pretty big success too. So 2K Games, which is Take-Two, if all goes according to plan, they will be publishing Borderlands 4 and GTA 6 next year. So they could have a massive year.
So big.
Yeah, so 2 massive games. Yeah, but like they didn't show gameplay. I'm sure if it's out next year, they're going to show us gameplay soon. That's like when you announce a game and it's just a trailer. It's always a little bit, I guess, disappointing because it's like, you know, I'd rather see gameplay instead of like a CG teaser or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, how long have gamers been talking about this kind of stuff is meh? Like, yeah, we see it, we take it in, we watch it, and then we're like, I wish it was the actual game. Like, why don't they just...
You know, when you
think publishers will listen?
I mean, at a certain point, like it takes a while for a game is like, you know, audience ready, so to speak. So either you spend a lot of money like Sony used to do when they used to do their PlayStation 4 presentations for like, you know, God of War, or remember they used to have like these like 10, 15-minute gameplay demos of like Spider-Man or whatever, and you'd be like, whoa, and then the game would come out a year later or whatever the case is. So they would like divvy up and have like a big team like work for 3 to 6 months just on that 10-minute presentation, like live action demo. They would, you know, and then the rest of the game is like a mess at that point. So like games don't come together until very late, until they're like, you know, presentable, so to speak. But I know what you mean, and like even if you're just going to announce it, at least have something like or even just some sort of gameplay, or even like a representation of what you think the game is going to look like. Even if you're gonna just put a note and say like visuals not final, like touch it up if you have to. But like if it's like a pure CG thing that doesn't even tell you what type of game it is, that's where it gets annoying.
Yeah, it means nothing to any. Like, if you're not a Borderlands fan, this doesn't even make sense. You have no idea what game you're getting. So yeah, I mean they're cool because they're, you know, the World of Warcraft cinematics, trailers like are gonna go down in history as some of the greatest CGI animations that exist on YouTube. Like that, they still look good today, and we wouldn't have those if we were just going to show gameplay of WoW. So I don't know.
But those are a little bit different, right? Because
they're
like
story trailers,
because they were story,
trailers.
right? They set the tone for the story of where the story is going to go in the expansion.
Yeah.
Like everybody
I suppose.
So everybody wanted to see those. Like, well, what's Blizzard Cinematic going to do? Then everybody else kind of like tries to do it, but like remember, like even like the Overwatch shorts. You know, the CG shorts are like character based or whatever. Like they were amazing, right? Because they were so full of character and stuff. But you know what the game was at that point, right? Like you can't, like when they just announce something and it just shows you like these random CG shots of things you don't care about, characters you don't know, a world you're like, what is this? Like if you're, like I know what you're getting. Like 90% of it, you're watching it going, what is this? And like that's just not
It's confusing. This is a waste of time.
Yeah, they are a waste of time.
Let's
and another
move on
waste of time would be just 2K's also has a new Mafia game, which it's just a teaser trailer. Mafia, the Old Country. It's apparently set in Sicily. Mafia is like a cool franchise. It's like it's not GTA, like it never was GTA, but it was kind of like lumped in that sort of like GTA clone group.
It looks pretty good graphically.
Yeah. It's like set in Sicily, I think. It's going to be cool. I really like Mafia 2. I think and the Mafia remake, which is now on Game Pass.
I've never played one.
The first game is on Game Pass now. Like the Mafia, if you love story, it's really cool. Like the first game, the definitive edition where they remade it, it's kind of like the original Godfather. It's like set in the 1920s and 30s. It's really cool. And the open world is more of like a backdrop for like the story. So like if you're driving to the mission, it's more about being immersed in the world. It's not about finding activities to do in the world. Like the world is there to like it's set dressing, right? It's like costume design. It's like a movie. It's like, it's there to set the tone of you feeling like you're in this city.
That's sick. I might check it out. I've always been interested in the Mafia games, but I've
check
never
out the
played one,
definitive
and
edition.
I actually have no idea how the gameplay works.
I think you'll like it. Yeah.
Where's the camera? I don't even know where the camera is.
Like it's third person. It basically, like imagine like GTA, but it's just purely story driven. It's just the missions, the story missions, one after the other.
Okay. So it's like third person. It's not over the shoulder.
There's driving, and then there's like just walking around, but then there's also shooting, and there's some stealth. There's different missions. Like there's one early mission in Mafia where you're robbing like I can't remember if it's a police. Yeah, it's like you're breaking into a police station to steal evidence or something, and then you got to escape. Like then you get caught, and I think you end up in jail, and there's missions in jail. It's like it takes inspiration from like the Godfather movies and Goodfellas. It tries to be like one like that.
Wow.
It tries to be more like a mob show, like The Sopranos. Like that's what it does. Like you got like the full like all the characters and like lots of dialogue and cinematics, and the remake is really, really good.
Well, I might have to check that out because I am after a thick story. Do like me a thick story game. What else do we have? Games,
Indiana Jones. They showed a new trailer for that, and that's announced and coming in December for Xbox and PC, and then early next year on PlayStation. So there's a lot of people upset that Xbox is now bringing like more games to PlayStation.
Why are they upset?
Because Indiana Jones was a Xbox exclusive, and
they said it was going to be, and now they've gone
it was
back
announced
on
as
it?
Xbox and PC. Yeah, it's like a Bethesda game. It's like a first party or Machine Games. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Yeah, and that was kind of like their Uncharted, if you know what I mean. Like, because Uncharted was kind of like Indiana Jones, but. So they announced that it's coming to PlayStation. The reasons are business. Microsoft has invested $80 billion, whatever it is, in Activision, and they want to make money. And the only way they can make money is by bringing the game to more gamers, really, and more systems. So
technically, they didn't lie? What's Derek's article here?
Yeah,
technically, because they weren't a part of the first 4 titles. What were they? Because they were like throwaway titles, though.
I don't really agree with this, right? But yeah, they weren't throwaway. Right? It was like, remember, it was like Grounded, Sea of Thieves.
It was that music game as well.
Yeah, Hi-Fi Rush and
Hi-Fi Rush.
Yeah, and it was like, although either multiplayer or just like sort of like B tier games, right?
Yeah, but didn't Xbox shut down those studios?
One of them, yeah. Yeah, the Tango Gameworks. So basically,
gone.
When they announced the 4 games, well, even before they even announced what the 4 games were, remember there was like this big, or like we covered it, it was like this big controversy over like, Xbox is bringing the games to PlayStation. Yeah. And during that podcast interview, they asked Phil Spencer, like, which 4 games are coming? And then he said, it's not Starfield or Indiana Jones, as in this first 4 games. So technically he didn't lie, but he said, But that sets a precedent, right? Like if you say, well, it's not Halo, right? So relax. Like it's just Sea of Thieves. It's not Halo. And then 3 months later you say, well, also Halo's coming to PlayStation. Sure you didn't technically lie, but I think what this basically means is that Xbox is just not going to have exclusive first-party games. Like I fully expect Doom: The Dark Ages will be on PS5 now. I expect Starfield will get a port at some point. I fully expect the next Elder Scrolls to come to PlayStation, even though that's like 5 years out. Like if this is the rate that they're going third-party, like forget it. Like that's definitely going to be on everything. But I think that's basically how they're changing it. Like they're just going to release things on everything.
Phil Spencer technically didn't say the words Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't coming to X.
No, he did say those words, but he said...
No, they aren't coming.
But in context of the first 4 games only.
Okay.
So they said like,
they are not Starfield or Indiana Jones. I think when we say what these 4 titles are, then it'll make sense. Well, it turns out it doesn't make sense now.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like even if you like say that, like it doesn't.
That is a funny way of putting that. Yeah. Technically, he didn't. Yeah. That's dumb.
Yeah. Technically, yeah. Of course. Like technicalities are always going to be technicalities, right? You can get other things.
It is insinuated in there that if Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't included in the first 4 titles, then they're not coming at all.
Yeah. Or that it means that they're big AAA games, or they're big sort of like massive games that require teams of 600 people to make, that take 4 years or whatever the case is. They're not going to be the games like the Uncharted's, the God of Wars. You know what I mean? like it'll be like the Sea of Thieves, which is multiplayer, so that makes sense, right? Or Minecraft, like stuff that makes sense. But I mean, the weird thing about the Indiana Jones one is that like they said it's coming out early 2025 on PlayStation 5. So it's coming out December on Xbox. It's going to be exclusive for maybe a month or 2 max. So like I don't even know
That's short. Usually it's 6 months.
Like
6 months or a year.
Like this is my take on the whole thing, and I think I would be willing to put money on it as well. They spent so much money on buying Activision, and Phil Spencer and the Xbox team have been trying to pivot the brand to be Game Pass, right? And they hit the ceiling of what Game Pass can do years ago. And subscription services don't make money, period, unless you're continuously growing. They're basically like a loop. The way Netflix works is that you get more subscribers, you invest to create more content, to get more subscribers, to invest more to get content. Like Amazon, the way that they built up, right? So they're not money makers. And if Xbox Game Pass hit a thingo and they just bought all these studios specifically for Game Pass, and they're not making money, and with the economic, with all these tech companies looking to ensure that they have continual growth and profits, et cetera, that Microsoft, separate to the Xbox brand, Satya and that team, the board of directors basically told Phil that you need to make, like, unless it's making money, the division doesn't make sense. And so they're forced. Like, so even if like the Xbox team is like, understands that if we put Starfield onto PlayStation, or if we put Halo onto PlayStation, if we put Gears of War onto PlayStation, that diminishes the brand in terms of identity, right? Mario is Nintendo, and Sony has its Last of Us and all that sort of stuff. Like, the way the traditional platform structure is. That no longer makes sense. The Game Pass thing doesn't make sense. So their hand is forced. And specifically for Indiana Jones, if the game is going to come out on PlayStation 2 months after the Xbox release, that means the mandate was, we want this game to make money as soon as possible. You need to release it on PlayStation. And so they dumped this onto Machine Games and late probably in the development cycle to say, well, guess what? We told you 3 years ago that don't bother with a PlayStation version. Now you're going to have to get this game running on PlayStation and potentially a PlayStation 5 Pro. And so they're scrambling. And so I think it would have been day and date on day one on PlayStation. But now like they just put it 2 months later because they need... That's how long it's going to take to finish the PS5 version of the game.
So you think
So it's
that
not
they
even-
want
it's
to
not
keep
even a
growing
timed
Games
exclusivity
Pass
thing.
by releasing these games on PlayStation as well? And I'm guessing what's going to happen after they stabilize is that they'll come to Xbox early, and then hopefully PlayStation players are going to transfer over to
I think-
Xbox, or do you
actually,
think
like,
the
I don't
end
think it's-
goal is to just sell more units?
Yeah, I don't think the strategy is bad, because if Game Pass is the strategy and it's a PC thing as well as a console thing, and on PC the price is pretty cost effective for what you're getting. I think Call of Duty going to Game Pass, Black Ops 6, and Gamescom, there was a new story trailer, actually looked pretty good. Like one of the story missions, Call of Duty campaigns always look like, so high end, and the production values are insane, and this one looks pretty good. So if that's coming to Game Pass on PC for $10 Australian, so it's probably, or I think it's like $9 or something there,
Yeah.
US or whatever it is, you get that game and you can play it for a month, or you pay $20, like a third of the cost of the game, play it for 2 months, and then cancel your subscription, right? That's what they're banking on. And you can buy that game outright on PC. You can buy it on PlayStation, where it's going to sell a lot of copies. You can buy it on PS4 and Xbox One. But what the strategy now, I think, is basically bring it all to the Game Pass tiers that are premium, as well as PC, day one. And then if you're on PC, it makes sense just to sign up to Game Pass, because why not? Because you're going to get Call of Duty every year, and you're going to get all these other games every year. And then if you're on PlayStation, you might be sitting there going, well, I just spent $60 on Call of Duty. I've spent $60 on Indiana Jones. I've spent $30 on Sea of Thieves. And the Xbox first-party games are doing well on PlayStation too. Like the experiment was a success. Like that's why Indiana Jones is coming straight away. And then, depending on their ecosystem, they'll either jump ship to PC and just play them on PC and have the Game Pass there, or they'll consider like an Xbox Series S console or Xbox console, or some way to get Game Pass, or even if cloud gaming finally takes off, like they're investing, like they're casting a wider and wider net, which I think is like smart, because they want to grow the business. Well,
they need to. They spent $80 billion buying
exactly
Activision Blizzard.
how they got here is basically accelerating it, and so now they've got no choice but to, like, the mandate is now like, we don't care about exclusivity anymore. Like you're going to have to release these games everywhere they are, like everywhere that you possibly can, and that's going to be Xbox going forward. And I think they're still going to have consoles, and they're probably going to go a handheld. I think they're just going to go expand wider and wider with that.
Yeah,
just go everywhere.
Bolstering the value of Game Pass substantially through just more and more studios falling under the... I mean, like, purchasing Activision Blizzard is a massive umbrella. Then
they've got a WoW expansion out now. They've got a Diablo expansion out in a couple of months. Like, there's like the Blizzard, and they got Call of Duty, right? So like the amount of revenue they're going to make just out of the Activision Blizzard this holiday, Q4 and early next year, is going to be huge, like compared to what the previous years.
Question. Is the ultimate tier of Game Pass... I have Game Pass. I'm not sure what tier I have, but it gives...
You've got Game Pass, right? Yeah, install Mafia then. Yeah. Definitive Edition.
But, question... Do you still have to pay for every WoW expansion that comes out? Or is if I have the Ultimate Game Pass edition... So those two aren't integrated yet?
That's right, no. And I think at some point they kind of have to, right?
Well, I mean, because that's the direction they're going. If everything is falling under the umbrella of these Game Pass tier systems, and they're just aggregating content under that to increase the value, and like not even caring really about where the games are released in the... Well, of course they care about the initial sales, like the unit sales, but like not gatekeeping access to the games. They're just like, here's the best value service that you can get.
I think they would, if it wasn't for the case that WoW is just like an internal cash cow, in the sense that, like, even if they don't report like however monthly people subscribe to Blizzard, right? Like, their Battle.net, they have a WoW subscription. Like they pay monthly, or they pay yearly, or they pay for 6 months, whatever it is, like, because you have to pay to play WoW every month. And then you have to buy the expansion on top of that, right? And that gives you like 30 days. That gives you like a 30-day trial. Like that's how it's been running since 2004, 20 years.
Yeah,
That's how
literally,
WoW's been running, right? So if they've got like less players now than they've ever had, let's say they have like 6-7 million players, that's 7 million times more than what Game Pass costs per month.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
Like,
Why would they change it?
Why would they change it now when that's like, that's especially if like the cadence of releasing expansions feeds into that, and they've got people for life basically, like a certain percentage of well, I mean, if they're playing for 20 years,
then
I would say that
don't worry,
that's your game. That's like your lifelong game. Like at this point. So
I
think that one's a little bit weird, but I think going forward, like things like Diablo expansions should be included because you want people to keep paying every month for Game Pass, right? And so if you release, like, if that launches into Thingo, then you release your expansion to be like, oh yeah, so now I've got the expansion. It pays for itself. Or Call of Duty, each annual release, you get it.
I think, yeah, the walls of the exclusivity coming down, it's definitely going to rock the gaming industry. It's going to be weird. Just like to see all of these what were first party titles just releasing like 2 months after on competing platforms. Well, competing platform.
Like I don't think Sony's going to do the same thing because we've seen just all they're doing is like pivoting to PC. Like at some point they're going to go day one on PC for their games. Now it's like a year later. Like God of War Ragnarok is coming out next month or October, whatever it's coming out on PC. That's what, a year or 2 after 2 years after the PS5 version of the game. Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
They need more studios to ramp up the speed of which a new PlayStation title. They actually just need more studios, man. They just need more first party titles being made, being created. Microsoft has swept with the purchase of Activision Blizzard. Do you know what? And I've said this in previous episodes, but it would be bonkers, and I don't even think Sony has enough money to do this. But if they bought Rockstar, then I feel like the
or Take-Two, the publisher,
playing field is even, or Take-Two.
Yeah, that would even the playing field because then they get a number of IP. They would get Rockstar, obviously, but they would get Borderlands. They would get Mafia, as we just talked about, but they would also get like Bioshock, which 2K is also going to bring back.
NBA.
Yeah, there's the sports games as well, which are cash cows. Like
all of them,
or even if they got like an EA, it's like that sort of size thing. It would have to be like EA or 2K.
They need a massive acquisition to save them because Microsoft has PC and console.
Do they buy Ubisoft?
Cheap. No, Microsoft has console and PC. Sony just has console. That's it. And then they've got their games coming out on PC like a year later. That's weak. Like if the cadence of release is going to be like this Indiana Jones thing is going to set like a new precedent where a game comes out on Game Pass, then 2 months later you can actually go into a store and purchase it on a PlayStation.
I think there is
no reason that it shouldn't be happening the other way around.
Like a timed exclusive for like 2 months doesn't count. A timed exclusive for 2 months tells me that that version of the game, there was an issue getting it ready in time for launch. That's what that tells me.
Would do if it's that close.
Yeah. Like if it's 1 year later, then you've set a precedent for like, okay, 1 year later you can play it on PlayStation. 1 year later you can play it on PC. Like, Sony will be like, play Last of Us Part 3 now, and then a year and a half later it'll come to PC. But I think by that point, Sony will just be releasing things on PC on day one at the same time.
I think they will as well, because 8 weeks later, like, why even bother? Just release it at the same time.
Yeah.
Like 8 weeks is nothing. I think if there's going to be a gap, it should be at least be 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we have from Gamescom here?
Well, the NVIDIA stuff, but like before we jump into their game stuff, let's talk about their G-Sync announcement, which I think is pretty cool. So
you said I was going to like this one.
Yeah, the gaming monitor. You review gaming monitors, so like
it is true.
Yeah, so G-Sync modules, right? Like G-Sync modules, like back in the day, NVIDIA was first on the scene with variable refresh rate technology. And that is basically like, if the game is running at 46 FPS, your monitor will be at a 46 hertz refresh rate. And then if the frame rate jumps up to 52 FPS, the monitor will be at a 52 hertz refresh rate. And what does that mean for perceived smoothness? It means that a game feels smoother to play than a 60 to 80 FPS game without VRR enabled, right? Like if it unless like the frame rate is locked at 60, VRR is just so much smoother.
Means
like
your in-game FPS matches up with the hertz of your monitor.
Yeah, it's basically runs from like 40 hertz to up to the maximum refresh rate. Yep. And it's great, right? And then you got FreeSync, which is AMD's, and then you got FreeSync Premium, which is kind of like the G-Sync module version where like the refresh rate starts pretty low and it's like a better quality version of it. And those monitors are G-Sync compatible, which means that it is primarily software driven. So as you know, like basically every monitor you test is G-Sync compatible, right? Because like it works. But what does the G-Sync module do now? Like it's only available in high-end esports displays. You would have tested a few of the ASUS ROG ones with the G-Sync modules in them that have like reflex analyzers and things like that. One of the new techs is ultra low motion blur 2, which
ULMB2.
Yeah, which is, we've seen that in action. That is like just way better like motion clarity. And then their new one, Pulsar, G-Sync Pulsar, which is purely about high refresh rate motion clarity. And this is something that we've discussed where LCDs and OLEDs and stuff like that, like to really match the like the motion clarity, which is if the camera is moving fast or if there's a fast moving object on the screen, it will always look kind of like really blurry. And for it to look crisp, as it would on like a CRT display from like 20 years ago, like you would need like 1,000 hertz refresh rate, 1,000 FPS. So G-Sync's Pulsar technology increases the motion clarity up to 4 times. So it's basically if the monitor's running at 240 hertz, it's going to look and feel like it's running at 800 hertz or 1,000 hertz. And that's what Pulsar does, right? So all of this technology is only in the high-end G-Sync module, right, which is only available in super expensive displays that push those features. And the other things that the module has, 12-bit color accuracy instead of just 10 bits, 12-bit. Low latency HDR, NVIDIA's HDR tech is way better. The reflex analyzer for being able to input latency and stuff like that, being able to, for like competitive gaming. So anyway, so NVIDIA at Gamescom has announced that they're partnered with MediaTek. Now, what does this mean? MediaTek creates the chips that are in a lot of displays from companies like AOC, ASUS, Gigabyte, blah, blah. Like it's basically what they're called is like a scaler, right? It's like a little chip that handles image scaling. And, it's one of those chips that display makers buy and stuff like that. So they've partnered with MediaTek to incorporate the G-Sync module with their scalers going forward. Ooh. So what does this mean? They've announced the first 3 monitors, but this means that give it like another 6 months or next year, basically every gaming display will have all these advanced G-Sync features, which means that if your monitor now doesn't have a dedicated G-Sync chip, you may need to upgrade in a year to get like the Pulsar and the ultra low ULMB2. It basically is going to be exciting because like you're going to see so much more advanced features on a wider range of monitors and more cost effective as well.
This is exciting. I'm just looking at the model numbers for, I think, ASUS.
Yeah, they announced it for the ROG, one of the Swifts.
I think I reported on that.
And the AOC Aegon Pro.
Is that PG27AQDP?
No, NR.
NR. AQNR. Okay. All right. I was just wondering because
they've announced it for like 360 hertz displays, like the first 3 that are going to have this MediaTek chip. But this just means that like this MediaTek chip will be available to every or every display, like even like cheap ones where they're getting these MediaTek scalers, right? Buying them directly. So they will be like, okay, we'll put that in there so we can actually just say we've got all these advanced features. Like in most monitors are going to do that. And that's what NVIDIA said. Like this is a way for them to get, because I think what happened was the VRR component is the most important, right? Like that gamers care about, the variable refresh rate, because it makes the game look smoother. It's a brilliant feature. But NVIDIA has invested so much in these motion clarity tech. Like when you see it, like, you know, like you see the game running at 200 FPS, like dot or two, and the camera's like panning super fast. And then they turn on like Pulsar or they turn on ULMB, like, you know, and then you see it, like the comparison, the side by side with that on and off. You're like, oh, okay, that's way smoother.
It's way better.
It's like, yeah, but the only way you can get that, it's not software, it's not GPU driven. Your monitor has to have this specific chip in it.
Yeah, it's got to be a processing on it.
Yeah, so them no longer selling those G-Sync modules or having to only limiting them those to high-end displays or whatever the case is. Now MediaTek is just going to be like incorporating that tech.
This is healthy.
And these chips are also in TVs as well, so we could see this tech coming to TVs. That
would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. This is healthy. I'm excited for this. Hopefully this comes out to a range of different size monitors. It eventually will. When are these displays coming out? Did they say that?
They announced the first three, and I think those three will probably be out later this year.
Yeah,
announcing. Or probably early next year. Like it's basically they've announced this partnership, so these MediaTek chips are probably just available now for partners for display makers to order or whatever the case is.
Well, I work with AOC and ASUS. I'm sure I could get in contact with ASUS. So any listeners, please stay tuned because you will probably get reviews. I mean, you will at least get reviews on the AOC and the ASUS variants of this. And while we'll be highlighting this kind of technology inside of my reviews, because I mean, it is a focus. I mean, I really am interested to see side-by-side tests with this. 4 times is a big call.
Oh, no. It's 100% it works. Like, yes, it is. It's because like the way like refresh rate or like an else, like motion clarity, like how crisp something looks is not just about
the resolution and the detail.
Yeah, it's not just about like how many frames it can render per second. It's like it's not necessarily how it works. And the way that LCD technology and OLED technology, like I'm not an expert on it, but like the pixel firing and the delay is how you get like the smeary sort of like effect. And the way that the pulsar sort of like side works is that it uses like advanced like predicting and things like that to like render it. And like it's kind of like what NVIDIA's bread and butter is, right? Like when they developed DLSS or something like that, they developed it specifically for motion clarity on LCD displays.
Yeah, I'm excited to do the test for it.
Yeah, and then you'll be able to like run it with Counter-Strike and just.
I'll run it with Counter-Strike. I'll run it with Overwatch 2, maybe Rocket League, and maybe League of Legends.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Depends. But yeah, anything that requires a lot of like camera spinning or if there's a lot of things on screen that are moving very quickly. But those are the kind of tests that I'd be doing. I'll be turning that on and off. Well, I'd pretty much just capture my screen for about 30 minutes, hop between those games, or maybe an hour. It's like
you're going to have to play it by ear because like the only way to really, really...
you got to capture the screen and then look at the recording side by side.
Yeah.
And then play the video at the same. Yeah, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but once, I mean, I can get that set up in Final Cut. You can really easy.
Almost like screen capture a lot of times if the frame rate is like it's all, but the rendering will need to be
matched.
Like you almost have to do like
match to the screen's FPS.
Yeah.
You would. Oh, I mean, you could also do it that way. You could also set up
like a high frame rate camera, just capturing it, and then you have to run it back, play it back in super slow mo.
Yeah, my camera that I was using that you guys are watching me on YouTube with does 4K 120, and I'm pretty sure it can do 1080p at 240, which is pretty. I mean, it's not slow mo, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of frame data there for you to slow down the footage. You could probably catch something. Probably catch the differences between G-Sync Pulsar being on and off. With footage, but yeah, we'll take a look at that, and yeah, stay tuned for those reviews because I'll most definitely be getting those samples sent over. Let's move on to Half-Life 2. We got to kind of speed this up if we want to cut through all of this news.
Yeah. So NVIDIA had a pre-brief with all their Gamescom announcements, which included this G-Sync announcement, which was like purely technical, but I thought it was cool because it's like, oh, okay, they're bringing all that tech that was relegated to super expensive displays to more and more displays, and that's what the goal is, and so that was really cool. But outside of that, there was like another AI digital human demo. It's actually coming to this game called Mecha Break, where you'll be able to talk to the mechanic in between missions to ask to change your loadout, ask for advice and things like that. And They developed a new small language model specifically for it to be able to run on like a GeForce GPU. They said that the impact of performance is only about 5%. So it's not massive, but that's like in between missions anyway when you talk to the character. So it's not critical. But they were a bit cagey on whether or not you need at least a 4080 to be able to run it in the first place, if you know what I mean. Like they said, there's only going to be like a small hit to performance on a 4090. So it's like, well.
There it is. It's like, well, on the best graphics card.
But outside of that, it was just, it seems that ray tracing, I mean, it's been going on for ages, but like this full ray tracing and full RTX like is starting to be embraced more and more. So there was an updated version of Half-Life 2 RTX, which is a full remake of the game in RTX Remix by a studio called Orbifold Studios of modders, and they're doing the whole game. And the new trailer, which shows the Nova Prospect mission or the section, that's that mission in the second half of Half-Life 2 where you're in like a prison, and then you like there's a bug section, and then there's combined soldiers, and it's a really cool. And that was where kind of like when Half-Life 2 launched. It launched with Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, and that's kind of like one of the maps was this location. And so like the latest trailer, and this was playable at Gamescom, so people are actually playing it now. So I'm assuming this remix project, like they're redoing every asset in the game. This is like a full remake almost.
It's an overhaul.
Yeah. And so the new trailer shows like the fast-paced combat of the level with the full path trace lighting. You'll look at it and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's how I remember Half-Life 2. But then you have to like look at some of the RTX off and on examples to be like, well, yeah, it's not exactly how you remember it. Because
it's a fresh coat of paint.
It's a fresh coat of. It's more than just a fresh coat of paint. Like you look in like some of the indoor locations and you see like rubble in the corners. You look at the piping, and like there's just way more detail in every little centimeter. And then the shadows and the lighting. Yeah, it's next level.
Even if they didn't do any of the new textures, because clearly, like you've said, they've added new assets and textures to this game.
Everything's
even if they just did the path trace lighting and just had normal ray tracing implemented, this game would look like night and day. Yeah. It's night and day. But they've gone above and beyond with this.
Oh, after like the Doom, seeing like Doom with the full path tracing, and that was just taking the GZ Doom version, which was modded anyway to look better and look more modern. And then Black Myth Wukong's full ray tracing. Like this is now one of my most highly anticipated games, Half-Life 2. I mean, Half-Life 2 is a classic, right? It's like a 20-year-old game now, but like the hype around this game before it launched, like even the gameplay still holds up. Like the gravity gun stuff, the big tripod action sequences, and like all the pacing of the game. It was like, it's only like a 15-hour, 20-hour game, but that's like for like a first-person shooter, like to have that level of variety that sustains itself for that long.
It's one of those games where it's not in my Mount Rushmore of PC games, but I'm certain that it is up there in
Yeah.
it's at least categorized as a golden PC game. Half-Life 2, for sure.
Oh yeah, it's what launched Steam as well.
Yeah,
So I remember
that's
when
true.
they released it, it was like, what? I have to install this thing called Steam to play it? And it was like,
Yeah.
I mean, they were onto something at that point. Because at that point, there was no like, you would install the game onto your PC and then run it from the directory or your desktop, right? There was no like platform like Steam. Like it didn't make sense. You thought Windows was the platform. But Valve was, you know, like they were pretty cluey because like people initially didn't understand what Steam was going to be. It was like, what is this? You know, you just I'm launching Half-Life 2 and a couple of other little things, and then they added Portal and stuff like that. You're like, what? And then they
Like,
added
oh, wait, this
Storefront.
has all my games.
Yeah. Then slowly but surely.
And now it literally has all the games.
Outside of that, there's two trailers you need to kind of like see. So, I mean, they announced like Indiana Jones, the PC version is going to have full ray tracing. So,
That's
but they
nice.
didn't show footage. And with DLSS, they said Dragon Age: The Veilguard is going to have full ray tracing. And
I'm more interested in that one.
Avowed, the RPG from Obsidian, the studio behind Outer Worlds and Fallout New Vegas, their new RPG, which got delayed to like January. Like it never looked totally amazing, but they announced full ray tracing, and then you see the trailer for it, and you're like, oh wow, like the game looks way better with the ray tracing running on PC.
This looks great. The Dragon Age Veilguard looks good.
Yeah, the ray tracing makes it look way better than its initial trailer.
And what the FPS difference?
Yeah, with DLSS 3, yeah.
That's double. What?
Yeah.
What was the first number? That's more than double.
Oh, that's the frame generation though. So it's like, that's how you get these ray traced games to run really fast.
Yeah, I know,
With
but
reflex,
usually
yeah.
it's you don't get double the FPS.
Oh, I think you only get double.
What
when
name
it,
another
like, I think
title? You get double the FPS if you got that on.
with ray tracing, you do get double.
With
Like,
what?
that's-
What titles?
Like Cyberpunk, you get double with ray tracing and frame gen and DLSS 3. At 4K, you do. Yeah. But it's only usually with ray tracing because ray tracing is so visually intensive that like it's kind of like tailor-made for DLSS 3 and reflex.
That's insane.
Yeah, and then Avowed looks pretty great too. Like the RTX on and off, like, and that kind of looked just like a standard fantasy game, but with ray tracing, like it just looks way more immersive. The world, the lighting, and stuff like that. You see some like the on and off examples. If you look at the Avowed trailer, go to about the 22 seconds. You see like the off and on section of like a cave, and it's like, whoa, that's like night and day. Like how much better it looks.
What number is it in the doc? Sorry. Avowed.
Number 2, yeah.
Number 2, sorry.
Because it's with the Dragon Age, it's just underneath. I put it in the same article instead of doing 2.
And Avowed. Okay. Yep. My bad. Right. Oh boy, this looks good too. RTX off. Ugh.
That's how the game had looked. And that looked with, like, yeah, because it looked okay. And then, but with the RTX on, it looks like, oh, okay, that looks like an.
That's mad.
Mm.
Wow. So, Avowed, I haven't even heard of this.
It's from Obsidian. They're like the Xbox. They're an Xbox. It's an Xbox
You
first
like
party
the
game.
Outer Worlds? That was meant to be okay. Am I remembering
I
that
kind
launch
of liked
poorly?
it. No, it was pretty good. Like, there's a sequel announced, so it's like it did well.
Because that's sci-fi exploration. That's right up your
Yeah,
alley.
I liked it. Yeah. It was like had the comedy and stuff. It was kind of like Fallout-ish and stuff like that. It was like a RPG. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Whereas
friend
this
that's
is-
really big onto Fallout, like you, he got it and he thrashed it and he loved it. Yeah, and he was
that's
like,
good.
"Joke, man, you got to play this," and I'm like, "Nah, it's just not." Because you like
I
Space
don't-
Cowboys, right?
But you like sci-fi though, so I don't get why you don't like sci-fi games.
I don't know. I just give me.
But I guess no. I mean, you love Lord of the
sword.
Rings more than sci-fi.
Give me a sword and some elven magic. And
Well, that's what this is then. Yeah, play the RTX version of Avowed.
I might. I might just Costa. I might. It looks phenomenal. I'm very excited for like all of these games just getting a ray tracing implemented.
It's like almost like every game now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, so Indiana Jones, Dragon Age, Black Myth Wukong, which is out now, Star Wars Outlaws, which is out at the end of the month, Avowed. So like basically almost every major game coming out, or like all these big games that like are going like multiple ray tracing things. Like the full ray tracing, quote unquote, means that it's not just reflections, it's not just shadows, it's not just this. It's all of those things with either like global illumination or NVIDIA's new features plus their ray reconstruction thing. I think that's probably been the game changer because ray reconstruction just makes the DLSS 3.5 makes ray tracing look better if you've got an NVIDIA GPU. Like it actually looks way better.
Do you reckon we're going to see GTA 6 launch with ray tracing? We have to. You expect this, right? You have to.
By that point, yeah, it'll have to.
When it comes to PC, I don't think it's going to launch with... Do you reckon it's going to launch on consoles with ray tracing?
But the thing is, console ray tracing...
It's just garbage. It's not even at the right res.
It's super low resolution, and it's usually just reflections or something like that, and that's it.
When the game comes to PC, it needs to have ray tracing on day one.
And DLSS 3.5 and stuff
Obviously,
like that.
yes.
But
I want all the bells and whistles.
By the time GTA 5, I mean, it's going to come out next year on PlayStation, and then it might be the following year on PC.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And if that's the case, we'll be on the next gen GeForce GPUs by then anyway. We'll be on the 5080, 5090s. Or it might even have like a 5090 Ti or something like that. And the power of that will be we'll be able to eat GTA 6 for breakfast, right? Because this game
would be at DLSS 4.5, maybe 5.5 by then.
Yeah, I mean, the trailer that we saw for GTA 6, which is still one of the greatest, like, I mean, it's just when you have that amount of detail in a world, and that's running on PS5 equivalent hardware or Xbox Series X equivalent hardware. So it's just going to look absolutely insane on PC.
I can't wait. And yeah, look, I reckon we're trending in the direction of every game launching with some form of ray tracing.
And speaking of that, like NVIDIA just like buried this trailer for this RTX trailer for this game called Black State. I don't know if you've heard of this. I didn't really hear of it, right? I went to the Steam page to find out what this game was. From what I can tell, it looks like a Metal Gear Solid. It doesn't, there's screenshots with characters. But anyway, like what NVIDIA did was they launched they debuted as part of Gamescom an RTX announced trailer, which just means that the game is going to be using ray tracing. So this trailer for Black Slate isn't like, it's not a gameplay trailer. It's almost like a tech demo where it just shows you the game's environments, right? But what it shows, which is like a science lab, a museum, and a like a cargo ship or a large freighter ship or something like that, with like full ray traced lighting,
reflections
and shadows and stuff like that. It looks photoreal. Like if you were to, like some of the shots in this, if you were to just show somebody randomly, they would think that that was like a photograph of a science lab. Or that was the deck of a ship.
That statue shot where it pans
like some of the statues you can tell. It's a forward
push shot through the doors, and that statue that looks like a real room.
Yeah, that looks photoreal, yeah.
And also that close up it's like panning in and right of the statue. That also looks photoreal. That's unbelievable.
It's insane, right? I actually want them to release this almost as like a tech demo.
What, like you walk around
to have a look at it
in there as a character? That would be crazy. That's wow. So what is this for? It's just what is this, dude?
It's like it's a game called Black State, right? There's a Steam page. Like I don't quite get it, right? So like you go to the Steam page and there's actually shots of characters, and the characters kind of look don't even look as great as like the environments. So maybe it's not going to be a very good game at all, but the environments are going to look incredible, right? With the realistic lighting.
Who the hell is Motion Blur, the developer and publisher?
It's some random, I guess, Chinese
This is
studio.
the only game that they've got.
Yeah. And then like the description gets like a little bit weird. They say like we've developed our own rendering pipeline that's going to deliver the best visuals you've ever seen, and with no loading times. No loading times. Yeah, thanks to a special pipeline developed after a long R&D process, we can produce the most photorealistic graphics with unbelievable optimization, which means it's going to run great. Our focus is to ensure that all gamers can enjoy the game with stunning, immersive visuals.
Dude,
I don't know how that's possible.
What the hell does that even mean?
Exactly.
Look at that screenshot of the crows.
Yeah, that looks photoreal.
That looks like it's captured by like my camera, my $5,000 camera.
Yeah, you know what it looks like? Like, I think part of it is that, you know, those mods for GTA that have been around for years, those realistic reshade lighting mods, where it looks photoreal, but it's like faked. Like it seems like the game is using like a realistic lighting template, kind of like that. Those sort of like photoreal reshade mods, which you can get for like Cyberpunk and stuff like that. Games don't usually use those because they don't work in all situations unless you're like path traced. Really, they don't really work, I think, like in certain games, and sometimes they break from how the art direction is supposed to look, or whatever the case is, because games aren't supposed to be photoreal. Like, not every game should be photorealistic, but this game
No, because you get to the uncanny valley.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, when you see environments like in this trailer, you're like, okay, they look photoreal. But if the character looks kind of like weird this could go either way, right? But I think just visually, like, I haven't seen the visuals
so
like this.
Impressive. I
Exactly.
made my eyes bleed. Look at the reflections in the ship.
Yeah, it's bananas.
RTX off, no reflections. No reflections at all. Can I just pump a few? I'm going to run through my 3 stories real quick, and then maybe we'll wrap up, unless there was something that you wanted to hit first.
We talked about in the intro. Yeah, so ARM is apparently going to be making a GPU. Now, this is a quick story because it's not really confirmed, a lot of it, but like there's just sources saying that because ARM is a UK company, or they're based in the UK, but apparently in Israel, like one of their engineering teams is developing a dedicated GPU, and this would be a GPU like a GeForce RTX 4060, 4070, 4080, right? So this is not a APU like a CPU with a GPU component or whatever the case is. This is like a desktop GPU slotted into your PC, a Radeon GPU, an Intel Arc GPU, and that's what the rumor is that that's what they're making, and that's what it's going to compete with. But then the other side of that is that it could potentially just be an AI sort of GPU that can do gaming. But like, it's tricky because
you'd have an NPU on it.
But then you also, like, GPUs are good for
tensor cores.
Yeah, it'll have like a AI component part of it. Yeah. Well, tensor cores are NVIDIA specific, but like GPUs are just generally good for AI compared to like CPU anyway.
Oh, yes. But you think that it'll come with some form of AI hardware on it?
Yeah, because them entering the GPU race, it's not like there's no room, because like NVIDIA is just totally dominating. So like, even if there was a fourth player, right, like it doesn't make a huge difference, because like, like you could add like 6 or 7 until somebody makes a splash, so to speak, and is able to take notable market share, right? Like real competition, would be nice to see regardless. But like ARM entering it, creating a dedicated GPU just opens like a number of questions. Just like with Intel, it's like, how are the drivers going to be? What sort of support can you actually give for like DirectX old PC games? How are they going to run new PC games? Ray tracing, DirectX 12, Vulkan, and like stuff that took Intel a year or so after the Arc already came out for them to like fix and update and resolve a lot of those issues. AMD, like Radeon drivers, weren't that great for a long time. NVIDIA's been making drivers for GPUs since the 1990s, so they've got 20, 30 years of
optimization.
of optimization specifically for PC gaming. So like a brand new company to create like a gaming GPU, it's like it's not
as easy as just making the hardware and rolling it out.
And it's not
you need to have
or
the
even
software.
throwing money at it, right?
Yeah.
You can't just throw money at it. Like it's more than just, or even just engineers. Like you just need expertise and testing, and there's so many variables.
20 years of crash reports on countless variations of hardware specs in countless games, and now you've got NVIDIA's WHQL certified drivers that have just been like stacked and stacked and stacked on top of as the years have gone by of game optimizations. It's not as simple as like, oh, I can also make microprocessors. Let's make a GPU. It's yeah, I mean, you can make one, sure. A GPU is essentially just an advanced calculator anyway. That's right. Yeah, like the CPU
most basic
and GPU
version.
are just crunching numbers in different ways. But this is interesting. One of the first questions that come to mind for me is this component there's no room for emulation here. Like this is going to work.
Because like ARM is because there's CPUs, right? Yeah, like the RISC-based, it's like a different architecture for the CPUs. Like if they've got a GPU that's going to slot into a PC, it'll be PCIe Express interface, and then the GPU hardware will be the GPU hardware. It'll be compatible with PCs. Like there's no other way around it. So like this, which is weird because like this seems like it's out of their wheelhouse in some respect.
Yeah, because we're seeing all of these Copilot Plus ARM-based PCs, they're running emulation.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a very different thing.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, another GPU player, like bring it on.
Do you think they'll come out with something that is 4090 spec, or do you reckon they're going to hit mid-range first? I reckon it's so much safer to hit a mid-range, but
I don't think you could like launch like initially with something that could compete at the high end, because I think if you look at the high end, right, like if you look at the high end, like I think NVIDIA's always established, right? Like, and I think Radeon to an extent is established because they have a long history of ATI and different Radeon cards at the high end. Even with like the current 7900 XTX, it's a good value card for what it does compared to the 4080 and that sort of price range. But if you're brand new, like you're tapping into like that level, you've got a small customer base, but that small customer base is primarily educated and knows that if you got a 4080 Super or a 4090, you're going to get all of this stuff. And if you go for the Radeon, you're going to get great just standard performance and decent this and that. Like, like how do you compete with at the high end? Like you kind of like have to come in at a price range that makes sense. It's like, well, instead of the 4070, I'll get this thing that's $100 cheaper that's apparently more powerful in some cases, or whatever the case is. You know what I mean? Like I don't think you can launch directly and compete at the high level with a GPU, which is why Intel and also as well, like it'd be more difficult to hit that performance level. You can't
for sure, yeah.
Because a lot of it has to, like most of it has to do with like the billions of transistors on these things and all this other technology, but at the same time, some of it is driver based, right? Like
I think at least 50% of it's driver based.
Yeah, and also APIs like DirectX and Vulkan, which are like, and games are developed for these GPUs, like tested with them, and like like their optimization, like like at that sort of high level, like how are you going to really? Like you're not going to hit.
Yeah, and you also, like you said, you're selling to educated customers that know that there is going to be much more value with buying the same price NVIDIA product, because you're guaranteed all of this stability. It's going to be a rocky road. Like I'm sure know this as well. Like upon launch, just like Intel did with their Arc stuff, it's rocky. That's like you said, what, a year before it hit stability, it's reasonable.
Yeah, like they were emulating certain things, and their old game performance was like terrible at launch. I didn't test it, but by the time I got a review unit, like they had ironed out quite a few. Like it was something like, a lot of like DirectX 9 performance was increased by on average 300% or something silly. which just means that it was
crap
running
before.
absolutely terribly before.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I might, if that is the last story that you wanted to go through, I might just quickly blast through these three stories here. Okay. So ASUS unveiled 3 new monitors at Gamescom. The world's first 1440p 480 hertz OLED. It's a 26.5 inch display W OLED panel, not QD OLED panel.
Oh, right. That's the LG, yeah? W
Yes,
OLED.
that is the LG variant. And it has a new I haven't looked into this because this is, brand new. It only came out yesterday. RWGB sub-pixel layout for clearer text. That is something that is a problem with OLED panels. And apparently more so with the W OLED variants as well than the QD OLED variants. So it'll be good to see some improvements made in that department. I'm just like the previous ASUS monitor that we were talking about with the upgraded G-Sync module. I will be requesting this for sample as well, just because 1440p at 480 hertz. Who doesn't want to try that? The other ones aren't as impressive, but I can say that I am testing the XG27 ACDNG, the one that is the current generation. So that model number I just said is the brand new one that hasn't even come out yet, but the one below that, the one the new one is replacing, I'm currently testing that one right now, and the text fringing is rough. It is the exact same 1440p spec, but instead of 360 hertz, it's at 240 hertz, which is nice. Like 1440p at 240 hertz, that's super nice. But the pixel density has made the text fringing just sucks to work on. It ain't great. It's not good.
Yeah, text is always one of those things that you just like on monitor.
It's fine at 4K because you got the pixel density, but at 1440p I'm guessing that is I haven't looked into what panel it is. The one that I'm using
is that the
running,
one where it switches?
but I'm pretty sure it might be 2nd generation QD OLED, and we're up to 3 now. And the 3s, the problem is pretty much gone.
I think I was about to say, like the text on the 3rd gen one is so good. Like
it's great.
Because I remember, because I had like the 1st gen, I was like, ooh, it's only like text that really holds it back from.
Yeah. It's well, I'm glad that they're clearly recognizing that is a problem, because the WOLED panel is getting a new sub-pixel layout that is designed to improve text clarity. So they are aware. The last one is the ROG Swift 360Hz PG27AQNR. This is an IPS panel. It features...
Oh, this is the one with that new chip in it, the MediaTek one.
Yep, that is the one. And
Pulsar.
We are going to get that will retail at $9.99. Oh no, sorry. I'll just rattle off some of these prices and release dates. So the world's first 1440p 480 hertz gaming monitor will retail at $9.99. No release date was mentioned in the press release, while the XG27ACDNG will hit shelves in Q4 2024. And no prices were mentioned for that one or the other monitor, so that's fun. But that is something to look forward to. There is 3 interesting new... How do you feel about this stand? Because the monitor that I'm testing right now currently has that. The 240 hertz variant of the one that is pictured in this article.
Which one's that one? Is that the square base?
Yes.
I prefer that, to be honest.
I prefer square over the forks.
I don't the ASUS like massive forks, like you get used to it, but like I'm not a huge fan. I think
my mouse slams into it. It's a problem I've brought up on the podcast probably numerous times, but I am not a fan of the forked 3 feet approach that they're going. Yeah, I think it's whack. I much prefer the square stand. It's just a smaller footprint, and I'm not going to slam my mouse into that. You know, like look how wide those feet come out on those images
like the
there
versus the monitor.
versus the square base.
The square base is cool. I think it looks better.
I reckon they need to make that little mobile phone slot. They need to make that wireless charging. So when you put
but that'll increase the cost though. Like all those sort of stuffs weirdly increase the cost. Yeah,
I mean, it's any kind of edition is going to make the. I mean, these are already $1,000 monitors. You know, want it's a monitor stand. It's a phone slot. It's like, well, no, thanks for putting that there, but can you make it do something other than hold my phone up?
Yeah, I mean that's just gimmicky. If it just all it does is hold your phone up.
Okay, next story. Blast through this one too. I just thought this one, I'm not gonna lie, it made me emotional when I was reading into it. It's a pretty sad story, but a great ending. So, a team of scientists at the University of California created and this is something we've talked about on the show before, with Neuralink, Elon Musk's brain chip company. It's called a brain-computer interface, or BCI, and essentially that device is implanted into a region of the brain that has been targeted by the medical professionals. In this instance, it is the region of the brain that is responsible for speech, and the BCI tracks all of the neuron firing, the electricity that is going throughout our brain with all of those thoughts throughout the region, and can then convert that into readable data by a computer. And 45-year-old man Casey Harrell suffers from ALS, which causes for those that don't know, causes a loss of muscle control that can severely impact the clarity of speech. So he got the implant, and with its 256 electrodes, it was capable of analyzing brain activity sent to the region of the brain, and then converted that into readable data for the computer. The computer then outputted what he was thinking during the testing into speech that
That's cool.
Was actually his voice as well, which I think is really cool. It was his voice before the disease really took over his life as well. So in an essence, the BCI chip, he thinks of a sentence, BCI chip goes, okay, that's all the electricity that required for that sentence, sends it to a PC, then the PC in real time will convert that data into speech for him to talk. So now he can talk again.
You could just have that running off your smartphone, couldn't you?
Potentially. At some point, I'm guessing. I just thought that was incredible. It's like these BCI chips are now giving people that are suffering from different diseases, like we saw quadriplegic in the Neuralink instance, be able to use a mouse monitor. You can play like Mario and stuff like that. And now we've got an ALS. Someone suffering from ALS can now talk again, which is, I can only I can't even imagine how much that would bother that guy, that he can't say exactly what he is thinking the way that he wants to say it.
Just to be able to speak, like you know, like people that are like feel there's like certain tragic sort of like those sort of illnesses, either like muscle related or brain related, like where people feel trapped in their own body, so to speak, like they can't express things verbally or physically, and like, you know, and they feel like they're prisoners, and this sort of practical application for this sort of technology, which is kind of like, you know, like some people might scoff. It's like, oh, you know, chips in your brain. What sort of silly stuff is this? Like, you know, like that doesn't sound safe, or that sounds like invasive or whatever. But like, you know, it's kind of like prosthetics, or like, you know, bionic arms, or things like, or like, you know, cybernetic implants, or like if you play, or, you know, interested in sci-fi and like this sort of like future things of like chips in brains, or like chips in your arms, or like cybernetic implants, things like that. But like the practical effects like this, like where somebody who can't walk can walk again, who can't speak can speak again, who can't do this can do that again, or who has never done that is able to do that. People that
This was the
like,
reason
born blind that can now see. You know, like that's the genius of it. That's the stuff that where it just makes perfect sense.
But that's why we build tech in the first place. That's why you build anything. Like the first reason anything was ever built outside of, you know, typical like hunter-gatherer human existence was to benefit other human life. And I think this kind of tech is... I think it's super impressive. I can't wait for it to get better. I'm so excited for anyone that is suffering from any of these terrible, terrible diseases to perhaps one day in, I would guess, maybe 10, 15 years, you might even be able to go down to your local GP and get a brain implant that you can now speak to your family again. And just for how this works in this instance, just for the listeners, the BCI, the brain-computer interface, converts the brain activity in what is called a phoneme, or a silly, which...
like phono is just the Greek word for sound.
Yeah. Which is the syllable or unit of speech. So, and then that is then outputted by the computer speakers. So I think that is a nice little feel-good story.
Like it was a few months ago at least, but like when we talked about it, I think it was an Australian team or whatever, like there was a technology or scientist where they developed that. It was a similar thing where they could restore vision, like potentially like the application will be like, I mean, in its current prototype form, it's like very low resolution, black and white images or whatever the case is, like, you know, first gen of anything is always going to be look like a prototype, but you know, like that's like, it sounds like almost like sorcery, right? Like where they're using digital technology in a sense, like purely digital things to solve organic defects in a way. It's like it's crazy. Like it doesn't make like, it's always just seems weird to me. Like oh, you're gonna put a chip on a brain. Like it just like when you blend that sort of like hardware and organic material, it's always
and you know what?
Like just
I initially thought
it always seems like magic.
I initially thought that there was going to be no volunteers for this. But I now think that there is not going to be a shortage of volunteers because I mean,
what is the thing like because like most people might think it's like a selfish thing, like oh, I want to get my chip implant so then I can just read 5,000 books or like in 2 seconds or
bionic. Like I think the first people that will be targeted are people that are suffering from diseases, and I suppose that's what I meant. Like in terms of
I think the application
volunteers,
should be primarily that for a long time.
What was that? Sorry.
I think that should be the primary focus until like, I mean, like at some point it's going to become cosmetic, right? Like
I know, but like because the focus is on all of these solving these medical problems. If they can cure blindness, ALS, dementia, because they can save your memories on a device or a memory chip or something like that as a way of preventing dementia. If they cure all three of those, like those big three, let's call them the big three, there won't even be people that are going to be hesitant, I don't reckon. It'll be older generations, but like the younger generations, if they in their time see blindness and all of those like uncurable diseases, I think there is going to be people lining up the door for when these things become cosmetic. I reckon that people would just jump at it. There's going to be hardly any hesitancy except from the older generations of people. I would even be like, I'd be like, should I be a first gen adopter if they cured all of those things?
It's like, hey, there's this thing that will let you speak again, and you're like, I mean, okay, what are the risks? Yeah, I'm willing to accept it. There's risks in everything. Like read the side effects list of like normal like headache medicine. Well, not medicine, but you know, pain relief or painkillers, like you know, paracetamol, ibuprofen, and things like that. Like what are the risks of those? Like,
and look, if
insane.
I was
like
in that guy's...
like driving, whatever, like there's risks, it's like I don't see this being any more like dangerous thing. It's just I think it's the strangeness of it that needs to
It
be.
is odd.
Like, it's like, okay, there's a brain chip that does this. And you're like, what? Brain chip? Like, at some point it will become just like, like a prosthetic. Like, it's like, okay, now you can walk again. Of course, you got a prosthetic leg. Makes sense.
I wonder, because right now all of these BCIs are being implanted into the different regions of the brain responsible for different functions. So like the ALS chip is in the speech section, and I think the Neuralink brain implant is in the section responsible for movement. I might be wrong on that one, but anyway, they're all in different spots on the brain. So what's going to happen when like you have someone that is a quadriplegic that's also blind? It's like you're going to have like 4 or 5 different brain implants in all different regions of your brain, and then they're all going to be connected into like through like an infinity fabric, like SLI connector, the SLI or NV-Link. They're all going to come into like a central hub. And you're just going to be like, pew, a fully functioned cyborg, but also not suffering from any of the human diseases because you got a freaking bad roll of the dice. I'm so excited, and I can't wait for this tech to get better. Let's finish off this episode on a fun story. I mean, I suppose that one is fun and is a feel good, but this one made me feel even better. And it is just the general public being woken up by a bunch of robotic taxis just getting stuck in a parking lot honking at each other. I like this. You should like this as well. This is what I would call harmless fun.
But also as well, like if you're like in an apartment building and you just look down and you saw this and you knew that they were all driverless, you would be scared. You would think you're in a horror movie.
I would laugh because of my profession, but it is fun to think about other people seeing this and being like, what the hell is going on? Like, did an EMP go off? Like, what is that movie? I think it was called Civil War or something like that, where they had all of the like the EMP went off, and then like Teslas were just like driving into like this one spot because they were all programmed to go to this certain spot. I don't know have you seen it?
Was that Civil War? Or was that other one, that Netflix one? Yeah,
I think it might have been the Netflix one where there was a Civil War happening.
Yeah, that was I think the Netflix one was bad. That one with Julia Roberts, right?
That was it. Yes, that was it. I don't think it was a Civil War. It was something though.
No, Civil War was actually pretty good as a movie, but that one was that Netflix one. Yeah, I think is just was bad. But that sequence was interesting. Yeah, because it was like all the Teslas were just like coming down, like going full speed. It's kind of because it's creepy, right? That's what I'm just getting at. Like, because if you see it there and you're like, there's nobody driving.
Yeah, there's no one in there. So what happened was a parking lot in San Francisco became the breeding ground for seemingly confused self-driving cars gathering at night to honk at each other. Yes, that is real. So there is a video of this.
They drove to this location.
Yes.
That's scary, right? But
that's like weird. It's weird.
It's weird.
But my favorite part is nearby resident Randall White captured footage of the Waymo self-driving vehicles taking over the parking lot and seemingly becoming stuck and resulting in consistent honking like they were consistently honking at each other. The noise has kept residents in the area up all night, with reports stating several people in the nearby buildings have also complained about the noise. This is what one resident said: over the past 2 weeks, I've been woken up more times overnight than I have combined over 20 years. This has been happening for weeks. The resident said that the honking incidents have happened during the day and night, which is an interesting piece of information, and have started to affect his mood throughout the day. It's ruining his mood. These Waymo cars gathering at night, Kosta, they're honking and they need to shut up.
Yes. I mean, well, if robocars were just like waking you up every single night with beeping, I would be furious.
I would be furious, but there's something about this that just makes me laugh.
I mean, it's a victimless crime, right? I would take them all out.
See, it is a victimless crime, and maybe that's why I don't care about it as much, but I would be furious if I was living around this apartment complex. So Waymo, ABC7 News reached out to Waymo for comment on the strange scenario, and the company said its vehicles may briefly honk while navigating our parking lots, and that it, I quote, identified the cause and is in the process of implementing a fix. I want to know
Software
why.
update.
I want to know why.
Why are they hanging out at this parking lot? What are they up to?
Why are they hanging out at this parking lot? Do we need to start digging there?
I think there's something going on. Like, you can't have, like, this is creepy.
Yeah,
right?
Do you know what happened? This is what I thought of immediately when I saw the story. Obviously got a flush of like happiness knowing that residents are being kept up by driverless taxis. But I immediately thought of, you know, at the start of Interstellar when there's the gravitational anomaly and then all of the they're like the farming robots. They all start coming back to the house.
Yeah.
And then he's got to like reprogram it all. And he's like, I don't know what happened. It's like if we built the farm on top of like a bunch of minerals that like cause bad magnetics, we would have seen this ages ago. And
this is some sort of ancient alien intelligence. Like
maybe there was a gravitational anomaly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what you would call it.
And the Waymo taxis have figured it out.
I think so. There's something going on. Yeah, this is like the opening scene, of like a Interstellar or like a disaster movie where it's like, why are the electric cars are just acting strange?
And they get stuck in there. They just go in there and they just can't come out. They're like,
just beeping at each other.
You back up. No, you back up. No, you back up. They're just stuck in it.
As long as they're not hitting each other, right? Like it's just.
Oh no, they're safe. They're safe.
They're safe. Yeah. Because if they were like smashing into each other as well, then maybe it's time to scrap Waymo.
It's just what a fun story. This is what one resident said, and we'll wrap up on this. I could not be more cranky today for a Monday after these past 2 weeks. It's really at a high level. It's just really, it's tough. It affects the way you feel.
Oh man,
I should have more remorse for this.
I feel that. I feel that like
or feeling
like of the no like somebody like 2 weeks of
2 weeks is crazy.
Of not being able to sleep.
It's a long time.
Imagine you hadn't slept properly for like 2 weeks and it's just beeping, waking you up. And it's not even people beeping, it's freaking robocars beeping.
You go out there, you're like ready to just tear someone down. Just like, what are you doing? What are all of you doing? And then you just look in the car and there's just no one in any of the cars that are all just like, you can't even get into the cars. Like I would move all of the cars. I would want to move them. Like I'd get down. I'm like, all right, I'll just park them all and turn them all off. Just save everyone hearing this racket. But you can't even do that. I bet you can't even get into them. You have to have some Waymo dude come out there with like a fob or something like that to scan his way in. I don't think anyone can just get in these cars. Or at least operate them. You know what I mean? That's like you have to wait for a Waymo guy to come out. You're going to have to just listen to that. Oh, that's fun. Anyway. Whew. Yeah, very funny story there. I think driverless taxis. Yeah, this could be the start of... They call this like
a hallucination. Like, you know, when generative AI just does something bizarre. Like it makes up things and they just like, oh, it's there's a term for it, like a hallucination. When, you know, like when Google integrated like AI and then the AI started giving fake answers or even stuff that wasn't sourced from anywhere. Like it would just come making up its own facts for things that made no sense. And then just like, oh, that's just randomly AI does that. It hallucinates. Like, what? What do you mean? Like it just makes up stuff. Like that's just like, you know, like, that's why it's creepy, right? Like so when we get to robotics that can just... There's going to be strange behavior. And this is the beginning.
This is the strangest. This is, it could be.
This is the beginning. Yeah, this is the beginning of the end.
This is funny. I want to we'll keep our eyes on this. Okay, guys, thank you very much for listening to this week's episode. We will be back next week with a cleanup of any of the Gamescom stuff that we've missed that is worth talking about.
Yep, more tech and hardware and a few reviews to go through.
Yep. Yeah, we got a jam-packed week. I should have a review to talk about as well by that time. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere else, go check out the YouTube. There's videos. And if you're listening, wherever you're listening, head down to the description below, click on the Google Docs link, and all of the stories that we talked about in this week's episode, plus any that we missed and we didn't have enough time to get to, are in there for additional reading. Do you have anything to sign this episode off with, my friend?
No.
All right. Go enjoy Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah, go play Black Myth Wukong.
Yep. All right, we'll see you next week. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.